All right, 6 a.m. Pacific Northwest on a Tuesday morning. We are getting the day started with a good cup of coffee. Gonna do some business today, sell some copies to some customers. I didn't have time to make my video at the garage last night, so I will give you an update on what we're working on. This last week I spent most of the week working on interior work. I reupholstered the front seats, busted out the walking foot sewing machine and did some work, replaced some material. Start the process here of doing some upholstery work. I'm going to work on this head rest first, then we're going to work on this next. But before we get started, I have to prep some bobbins. Bobbins are the thread that comes up from underneath and ties together with the thread from the top. So you load the bobbin off of your master thread. And then you can set that aside for use here in just a minute. Now I'm going to thread the machine and get ready to do some sewing here in a few minutes. Now this is a Sailrite knockoff. It's not a real Sailrite. It's a Chinese knockoff of a Sailrite. I think I paid around $300 for it or something like that. What you need for upholstery work is called a walking foot sewing machine. That's where both the top and the bottom both walk. They grab the material at the same time and then pull it. Whereas the sewing machine that your wife or your mom uses would have a grabber on the bottom, but the top is just a ski that doesn't move or that doesn't grab. And when you're doing real thick 3 and 4 layers of material, you have to have a walking foot. Alright, well we're peeling this head rest apart and it's pretty gnarly. This foam inside is turning to powder, so I may be getting in a bit beyond what I was hoping to get into. because normally you just peel this off, but in doing so it's going to tear up the foam pretty good. When you put it on, you collapse the foam with your hands and pry it on, but it's not going to be possible with this because it's so brittle. So we'll see what happens here. Okay. So that's most likely sun damaged on some level. We'll see what we do with that. The back is normal and fine. The front's just powdery. Well, you get your material or your liner here, you turn it inside out. You always sew these things inside out. Okay, there's our new piece. Alright, starting the process of sewing this back together. Should have bought tan thread, but none of it's going to show anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, before I sew this back onto this here, I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. So I don't know if I'll get back to this tonight. I'm going to go hose this down and scrub it. Okay, so I went ahead and shaved off about a 1/4 inch of that foam that was crumbly. I got down to a layer of foam that seems to be more solid, and then I'm just gluing on this fabric backed foam. Now, fabric backed foam is used to sew to the backside of material so that when the thread goes through it, it grabs fabric on this side and it won't pull right through the foam. So fabric back is what you use to back something with. It also has a surface that's much tougher to wear than just straight foam. And you can find fabric backed foam at any supply place for material and whatnot. Piece right here, and then that'll be ready to be wrapped in a new piece of upholstery. Okay, we started at the top center where the notch was, worked our way around. We're going to do the same on the other side, work our way around there, flip the whole thing back outside out, and be done with it. Alright, we got this sewed together. Let's see if we can turn it inside out, outside out, whatever you want to call it, and see what it looks like. See how badly we screwed it up. Well, I don't know if I left myself a big enough hole to get in there, but we'll see. Probably not. Okay. Boy. I have to put this apart a little bit. Another trick to getting foam into new or tight upholstery is to wrap it in plastic. It'll slide a little bit better, than you can tear the plastic out when it's in there. Try that little trick. Because the foam wants to grab onto the back of the material. Okay, there you go. I'm going to staple the bottom shut, put the mechanism back in the bottom, and we'll have the headrest done. Nice new material there. Alright, the new headrests are done. It looks nice. I messed up a little bit right here. The thing is, when you're working inside out, everything is backwards. So this was supposed to come on the outside, this velvet on the outside of that vinyl, and cover that. So I'm going to have to take it back apart and restitch it. But when you're working inside out, you just have to remember everything's backwards, and I messed those two corners up. I'll fix those. But yeah, that's a lot nicer than the original material, which has all the fuzz completely worn off of it, and it's just down to fabric. So yeah, it's gonna look nice. couple of parts from another seat I had and created a clip for this spring that was broken. It's not exactly identical to the other clips, but it's close. So now the seat's fixed. And I cleaned it up. I'm not going to paint it because it's already painted pretty good. No reason. Usually I can sandblast them and paint them black again if it's a show car, but this is all going to be wrapped in upholstery anyway, so it's ready to go. Alright, we're fixing to put the seat into the car. I'm going to start with the Safari shock absorber seat, and then I'll put the actual seat, I'll bolt it to the top of it. Had to cut holes through the new carpet to hit the bolt holes, and cleaned up the seat mechanism, re-greased it, painted a few rusty spots, and it looks nice. Seat will sit on top of here, and we'll keep moving forward. There's a piece we're going to replace. As you can tell, it's completely ridiculous. All the fuzz is worn off, and you can see right through it. So we're going to add some foam-backed, some cloth-backed foam on the back of that. The rest of this is in pretty good shape. The vinyl's fine, and the lower panel is okay. It mostly came clean enough to reuse anyway. A little bit sun bleached, but we're going to reuse it. Okay, I think I'm going to use some of the 1/4 inch stuff, or this might be 1/2 inch. The original was 1/4 inch. But this will work fine. I don't have any of the thinner stuff, but this will work fine. It'll make for a nice, comfortable seat. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these two together first. I've always liked to do that because it makes it a little easier when I want to sew this into the rest of it. It's not necessary to do it that way, but it's the way I like to do it. These clips come in handy to keep it all together. Alright, there's the new seat cover. Looks pretty nice. I could probably clean up this vinyl a little bit more. Looks a little bit nasty. But the front is much cleaner. This is really nice. Definitely a lot nicer looking than it was, and that top looks brand new. So it's going to look nice in the car. You know, it would have been better if I could have got all new material and vinyl and made a new seat cover altogether, but I don't know, I want to get this thing back on the road, so this isn't a show car. It's supposed to be a daily driver, kind of a toy. Much of a before shot I got, but this is the after, and it looks a lot better. You can actually see the pattern. It's a little bit faded, but it's close to the original shade. Looks good. Alright, I'm reinforcing a really badly broken down edge on this seat. Somebody has been in here before me and they've done it some time ago, and then this thing wore out. This is the driver's seat where you get in, so of course this edge here just gets destroyed over time. So I'm going to put in a pretty stout a fairly stout kind of a foam. It's borderline styrofoam. I glue that to that edge, and then I'm going to trim it down and shape it into the rest of this, and then put some softer foam on top of it. And that should work for a considerable amount of time, as long as I'll own the car probably. And what you do is just take razor blades and you just start to shape it and contour it into the rest of the seat, thin it out a little bit so that you don't give yourself calluses when you're driving. Okay, well, we're getting there. One thing I didn't do was I did not add the ribs back right through here that contain the metal braces that you then staple right to the frame. So it keeps that center part of the upholstery down, and it has that curved look to it. It's more like a drum now because those ribs have rotted out. I decided not to replace them. However, I could go back in and sew them in. It just keeps it more contoured, but I don't think it's a big deal. We'll see how it turns out. Pretty cool. Seats in, feels comfortable, smells good. I didn't put the headrest on. I had the idea of maybe leaving the headrest off. You can see out better, but you get worked pretty good in a whiplash situation, so probably put them on, I guess. All right, driver seat's in. We have one more to go. Passenger side, I probably won't film any of it. I want to just bust it out and get it done and move on to wrapping up the carburetor, fuel regulators, and then start this bad boy up. So we are getting mighty close. All right, front seats are put together and they are put in the car. Look pretty nice, very comfortable. Some of the reinforcements I added make the seats very comfortable. I have not added the headrests yet. I'm thinking about leaving them off because you can see out the back a lot better. It has kind of that older 60s style Jeep seat without the headrest. I do realize that without the rest, if you get rear-ended, you're going to get all three major kinds of whiplash, but we'll see. I'll probably think about it and decide what to do, but for now, I'm going to leave them off. I also got a few parts in, worked on the fuel lines, and installed the regulator, the fuel regulator, some of the fuel lines, and also some of the accelerator pedal cable attachments to the carburetor. I ordered a few parts off of a Volkswagen website, and they're really nice attachments. They're going to be smooth and real steady, sturdy, I should say. Okay, we're putting on these cable ties. They're going to be a lot better than the mock-up I had before, and I'm just cutting the cable to fit. I'm just switching the inlet port for the carburetor to this side because I'm going to have the fuel come out here to the regulator and then up to the carburetor. Right now it's positioned in the back. So both of these have crush washers, aluminum crush washers, which you're not supposed to reuse. So let me go in the other room and see if I have some new ones. I think I do. And that'll work. You can see the sweet little setup we have here with these cable ties. These I actually got from a Volkswagen Beetle supply center. Apparently they're Volkswagen cable ties, and they work really nice. They're got a ball joint here, so they're really smooth. And as you can see, when you hit the accelerator, it pulls the transmission passing gear cable at the same time. All right, I had the fuel regulators come in last few days. I'm going to hook this one up right here and plumb it to the carburetor into the fuel pump. And we won't set the actual pressure until we actually start the car up and get some fluid pumping through it. So we'll see how this works. Okay, next I'm putting the fuel lines in. This fuel filter gets plugged in right here, like that. But I'm going to replace these lines. This fuel line right here is the original, and the end is pretty messed up. You can see there it's pretty old, tearing down the side. So I'm going to replace the fuel line there, and the return line here. This big one is the return line to the tank, which I'm going to put at the bottom of the fuel regulator. Has a return line on it. So I'm going to replace this one. Okay, so there's the return line. I'm going to take that protective cover off of there and put a new line in. I'm going to clean up these hose clamps, reinstall them, and then I'll put a new fuel line crimper at the end there. Okay, I'm just shaping and bending a fuel line. Rather than run rubber fuel hose everywhere, I like to keep that to a minimum because the metal fuel lines won't break or get damaged or leak like a rubber one will over time. So the more metal line you can use, the better. And we'll just use the rubber at the connection points, you know, 5-6 inches at each connection point. We're using one of these fuel line benders so you don't kink it. It has attachments that allow you to bend it without kinking. Let's see it here. There. I also got in a skid plate. I ordered it from England, used off of eBay for about 50 bucks. Looks real nice. I'm going to paint it up and it's going to be great. Had a package coming from England. Ordered a skid plate off of eBay. Let's take a look at it and see if it'll work. Clean that up and paint it, but it's not dented up or anything. Looks pretty good. I also got the exhaust manifold that came in today from the machine shop, and you can see that the surface here is completely been honed flat and ready to be put back on the car. I'm gonna wire brush it a little bit and probably spray paint it a cast iron color. Not that that'll stay on all that long, but it'll look nice if I paint it up a little bit. So that's the next toy that came in today. We're really close to starting the car. I might start it tonight, as a matter of fact, if I can finish up the fuel line attachments. And then I have to go through the entire truck and make sure that all the fluids are in it, and I didn't forget to tighten something. That's always an issue, especially when you take apart an entire car. If you work on one system, you're still a little bit nervous about installing it correctly and making sure that all the fittings are tight, but when you install all the systems, well, you're bound to have a leak or something in backwards or upside down. Well, that about does it for this week. On the next episode, you'll see that truck running, hopefully. And we'll keep moving forward. Check you guys next week.